the hyenas wouldn't cross the river. Willem de Klerk noticed it for the first time in June, during the dry season, when the Mogalakwena River was low enough to walk across in most places. His cattle grazed both sides, north bank and south bank, with the herd moving freely between them depending on where the grass was better. Standard practice in the Limpopo bushveld. But the hyenas, a clan of about 12 spotted hyenas that ranged through the area, only hunted on the south side. Willem lost a calf in April on the south bank, lost another in May. Both taken at night, both in the open grazing south of the river where the bush was thick enough to hide a hunting formation. On the north side, nothing. Not a single incident, not a track, not a sighting. The hyenas came to the river at night. Willem had seen their eyes shine in his spotlight from the south bank, but they didn't cross. Willem mentioned it to Elias, his foreman, one morning while they were checking the herd. Why do they stay on the south side? The river is low enough for a child to wade across. There's nothing stopping them. Elias, who'd grown up in the bushveld and understood predator behavior the way city people understand traffic patterns, looked across the river at the North Bank herd for a long time before answering. Maybe something is stopping them, boss. Something we're not seeing. Willem thought about that. He ran 2,000 hectares, 340 Bonsmara cows, a rotation of young bulls in separate camps, and one old herd sire on the North Bank that had been there for as long as Willem could remember buying him. Captain, 14 years old, 1,100 kilograms. He'd been the foundation of Willem's breeding program for a decade. His calves survived droughts, disease, tick fever, whatever Limpopo threw at them. But Captain was old now. Slow. His joints were bad. He spent most of his time lying in the shade near the water, getting up to graze in the cool hours, lying back down when the heat pressed in. He was the last animal Willem would have considered a threat to anything. The second thing Willem noticed was the scar. He'd owned Captain for 11 years, bought him at 3 from a breeder near Mokopane. In all that time, Willem had seen every inch of the bull during handling. Vaccinations, dipping, hoof care. He knew the animal's body the way a mechanic knows a truck. But in July, when the winter coat thinned, Willem saw something he'd never noticed before. A pattern of marks on Captain's hindquarters and flanks. Not brands, not wire cuts. Parallel scars, grouped in clusters of 4 and 5, running diagonally across the muscle. Old, years old, hidden under the thick winter coat and the bulk of a well-fed body for over a decade. He called Dr. Annalie Fourie. Annalie drove out that afternoon. She examined Captain in the crush pen, running her fingers along the scar patterns, while the old bull stood patiently, chewing cud with the mild irritation of an animal that had been through this process hundreds of times and found it boring. "These are bite marks," Annalie said. "From what?" She traced the pattern. Grouped punctures, spaced 20 to 30 millimeters apart, consistent with the jaw width of a large hyena. She moved to the other side. Same pattern. Both flanks. Both hindquarters. She counted. "Willem, there are over 40 individual bite scars on this animal." Willem stared. 40. Annalie moved to Captain's front end, lifted his head gently, examining the neck and chest. More scars. Different pattern here. Longer, shallower. Claw marks, the kind made by an animal trying to pull something down. "This bull was attacked," Annalie said. "Not once, multiple times, based on the scarring patterns and the different stages of healing. At least 3 separate incidents, possibly more. These wounds healed years ago, probably before you bought him." Willem tried to process this. He'd bought Captain at 3 years old from a breeder near Mokopane. The bull had been described as healthy, sound, excellent temperament. Nothing about attacks, nothing about scars. At 3, with a full coat and young muscle covering his frame, the marks would have been invisible. "You're telling me my bull survived multiple hyena attacks before he was 3 years old. That's what the scars say." And Willem, surviving 1 hyena attack is unusual for a lone bull. Surviving 3? I don't have a word for it. Willem called the breeder in Mokopane that evening. The man's name was Piet Milan, 73 years old now, semi-retired, running a small herd on the property his son managed. Piet. It's Willem de Klerk in Limpopo. The Bonsmara bull I bought from you 11 years ago. Captain. Piet was quiet for a moment. I remember him. What happened to him before I bought him? A longer silence. Why are you asking? Because my vet just found 40 hyena bite scars on his body. And the hyena clan in my area won't cross the river into his grazing. Piet exhaled. That sound that older men make when something they've carried for a long time finds its way to the surface. I should have told you when you bought him. I didn't because I thought it would lower his price, and I needed the money. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. Willem waited. The line was quiet except for the static that lives in rural South African phone connections. His mother was a good cow, Ster, my best producer. She calved him in March, late season, which meant the grass was already thinning and the predators were hungry. Hyenas hit the camp 2 weeks after he was born. We found Ster at dawn. She'd fought. You could see it in the ground, torn up in a circle around where she went down. She'd kept them off the calf for as long as her body held out. Piet's voice was steady, the steadiness of a man who'd told himself this story enough times to say it without breaking. The calf was standing over her when my herdsman found them. 4 months old. He had bites on his legs, his flanks, his neck. Shallow. The kind hyenas inflict when they're testing, not when they're feeding. They'd tried to take him too. But he was standing, on all 4 legs, over his mother, and he wouldn't move. My herdsman tried to lead him away. He wouldn't go. We had to bring a truck and physically lift him into the back. Even then, he fought. Not aggressive. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He just wouldn't leave her. Willem closed his eyes. We treated his wounds, raised him on a bottle in the homestead yard. He grew up with the farm dogs, 2 ridgebacks and a Boer bull, ate with them, slept near them. I think in some way he learned from them, not how to be a dog, how to guard. The ridgebacks were bred for guarding. He watched them patrol the yard fence at night. And when he was old enough to move back to the herd, he did the same thing, except his fence was the herd itself. And the second attack? Willem asked. Piet continued. At 18 months, we put him back with the cows. He was big for his age, strong, and he had something in his eyes that the other young bulls didn't have. Not aggression, awareness. The kind of look an animal gets when it's learned early that the world has teeth. 2 weeks after reintroduction, hyenas hit the camp at night. Took a yearling heifer at the edge of the group. Your bull? My bull was standing in the middle of the herd when we got there. The dead heifer was at the edge, separated, pulled down, but nothing inside the circle where the bull was standing had been touched. 14 cows, 6 calves, all alive, all behind him. Did he fight them? Piet paused. I don't know. I never saw it happen. But after that night, the hyenas stopped coming to that camp, moved to the neighbor's property, stayed there for 2 years, never came back. And the third attack? Just before I sold him to you. Different clan. New animals that didn't know him. They came through the west fence at dusk. My herdsman heard the noise and drove out. What did he find? The hyenas were leaving, walking, not running, walking away from the camp. And your bull was standing at the fence line they'd come through. My herdsman said he wasn't breathing hard, wasn't agitated, just standing there, like he'd had a conversation and they'd agreed to leave. No fight that anyone saw. But the next morning, we found tufts of hyena hair on his horns and fresh marks on the fence posts where something heavy had been thrown against them. Willem sat with the phone in the dark for a long time after Piet hung up. He thought about what he'd just heard. A 4-month-old calf standing over his dead mother while hyenas tore at his body. Surviving. Growing up with dogs instead of cattle. Going back to the herd at 18 months and immediately becoming the thing that stood between the cows and everything that wanted to eat them. Not trained, not bred for it. Forged. The word came to Willem's mind and stayed there. Forged. Like metal. You put something in fire enough times and it either breaks or becomes something harder than it was before. Captain had been in the fire at 4 months old, and instead of breaking, he became the fire. Willem went to his office, pulled out the file he kept on every animal in his herd. Captain's file was thin. Purchase date, breeding records, veterinary history. 11 years of data that told you everything about what the bull produced and nothing about who he was. He opened his laptop and searched for hyena cattle interactions in the Limpopo province. The research was limited but consistent. Spotted hyena clans regularly targeted cattle in the Bushveld, particularly calves and weakened animals. Losses were significant enough to be listed as a primary concern for livestock farmers in the region. The recommended responses were the same ones Willem used: crawling at night, electric fencing, guard dogs, regular patrols. Nothing in the research talked about a single animal serving as a deterrent. Nothing mentioned a bull that hyenas refused to approach. The concept existed in wildlife literature: dominant elephant bulls that lions avoided, old buffalo bulls whose reputation preceded them. But in domestic cattle, it was undocumented. Willem closed the laptop, walked outside, crossed the yard, took the dirt track to the North Bank camp. The moon was up, nearly full, the kind of Limpopo moon that turns the Bushveld silver and makes the shadows sharp enough to cut. Captain was lying near the river, his usual spot. The old bull's eyes caught the moonlight as Willem approached. He didn't stand, just watched. The way he always watched. Calm, steady, assessing without urgency. Willem sat on a rock 10 meters away. He looked at the river, low and quiet, barely moving over the stones. On the far bank, south side, the bush was dark and dense. Somewhere in there, 12 hyenas were doing what hyenas do at night: ranging, hunting, reading the landscape for vulnerability, but not crossing the river. Willem looked at the old bull lying in the silver light. 1,100 kilograms of bone and scar tissue, and 14 years of something that science would call instinct, but that felt, sitting here in the dark, like something closer to will. The hyenas knew, not because Captain patrolled or charged or displayed aggression. He was too old for that now, too stiff, too slow. He couldn't run down a warthog, let alone fight a clan of spotted hyenas. But they knew. Somewhere in the collective memory of that clan, passed down through generations the way hyenas pass down hunting knowledge, there was information about this piece of ground and the animal that occupied it. Not a story, not a memory in the human sense. More like a coordinate on a map marked with a single word. No, don't go there. Don't cross that water. Don't test what's on the other side. Something lives there that the last generation learned about the hard way, and the generation before that, and the one before that. It doesn't matter that he's old now. It doesn't matter that he's slow. The information is in the ground, in the scent, in whatever invisible language predators use to mark the places where the cost exceeded the reward. Captain had written that message with his body when he was young, and the land still carried it. Willem started keeping records after that night. Not breeding records or grazing rotations, a different kind. He documented hyena activity across his property for 6 months. Sightings, tracks, signs near fences, movement patterns recorded by his workers at dawn and dusk. He mapped it all on a satellite image of his farm that hung on the wall of his office. The pattern was undeniable. Hyena activity on the south bank, regular, consistent, multiple sightings per week. Fresh tracks along the drainage most mornings. 2 more calves lost in August, both on the south side, both at night. The clan was active and feeding. Hyena activity on the north bank where Captain grazed. 0. Not 1 track in 11 years. Willem showed the map to his neighbor Janny Botha at a braai one Saturday evening. Janny ran the property east of Willem's and had lost 6 calves that year to the same hyena clan. He studied the map with the skepticism of a man who'd tried everything and didn't believe in easy answers. "Your bull is a scarecrow," Janny said. "Not a scarecrow. A reputation. Prove it. Take the bull off the north bank. See what happens." Willem considered it. He wasn't willing to risk Captain on the south bank at 14, but he could test the theory the other way. He moved Captain to a small camp near the homestead. kept the cows on the north bank without him. Within 4 days, his herdsman Elias reported hyena tracks on the north bank for the first time in over a decade. Fresh. Multiple animals. They'd crossed the river at the shallow point and explored the grazing where Captain usually lay. They didn't take anything. Not yet. But they were there, testing, checking whether the thing that kept them away was still present. Willem moved Captain back on day 9. The track stopped the next morning. Immediate. The bull returned and the boundary reinstated itself. Willem called Janny, told him. Janny was quiet for a long time. Then, so what do I do? Buy a bull that's been chewed on by hyenas? You couldn't buy this one for any amount of money, but you're asking the right question. The boundary wasn't the river. The boundary was the bull. He shared the data with Annalie at a routine visit. She studied the map for a long time. This is what's called a landscape of fear, she said. Predator ecologists study it in wildlife systems. Prey animals avoid areas where they've experienced or perceived high predation risk. But this is the reverse. Predators avoiding an area because of a prey animal. I've seen it with elephant bulls and lions, never with cattle and hyenas. What makes him different? Annalie thought about it. 40 scars. 3 attacks survived before age 3. A mother lost to the same predators. Willem. Captain didn't just survive hyenas. He became the thing hyenas avoid. That's not training. That's not instinct. That's identity. He is the animal that doesn't lose. And they know it. Captain is 15 now. He may not see 16. His body is closing down the way old bodies do. Slowly, piece by piece, with a dignity that machines don't have. He grazes less, rests more. The shade by the river has become his world. A small circle of ground where the grass is soft and the water is close, and the north bank stretches out around him like a territory he no longer needs to walk, because walking it once was enough. Annalie came for what she told Willem would probably be her last medical visit for Captain. His teeth were worn to the gums. His joints were swollen beyond what medication could manage. His heart was still strong. The heart of an animal that had never learned how to quit, but the body around it was surrendering. He's comfortable, Annalie said. No pain that I can measure. He's just old. And old catches up with everyone. Even him. Willem nodded. He'd known this was coming for 2 years. Knowing didn't make it easier. What happens to the north bank when he's gone? Willem asked. Annalie looked at the river. I don't know. The hyenas will test it eventually. They always do. The landscape of fear might hold for a season, maybe 2. Scent fades. Memory fades. Eventually, a new generation of hyenas will cross the river and find out that whatever used to live here is gone, and the boundary will disappear. Unless one of his sons carries the same thing he carries, the same willingness to stand when everything says run. You can't breed for that, Willem. You can't select for it in a catalog. It either lives in the animal or it doesn't. Willem moved the breeding cows to the north bank permanently last year, all of them. 340 head, plus calves, plus the young bulls. The entire operation consolidated on the side of the river where the hyenas don't go. His neighbors asked why. Because my best camp is wherever that old bull is, Willem said, and the hyenas agree. The young bulls graze around Captain now. They don't know who he is. They don't know about the 40 scars hidden under his thinning coat or the 3 attacks he survived before most bulls learned to run. They just know that this piece of ground feels safe, that the nights here are quieter than the nights on the south bank, that something about this place lets them sleep without waking. They don't know it's him, but the hyenas do. And every night, when the clan moves through the drainage on the south side and reaches the river crossing where the water is shallow enough to wade, they stop. 12 spotted hyenas with jaws that can crush bone. They stand at the water's edge and look across at the north bank where the cattle graze and an old bull lies in the silver grass. And they don't cross.